Rain pattered against the cafe window, a steady rhythm against the quiet murmur of afternoon conversations. Asher stood by the glass, his weathered fingers tracing the rim of a hot teacup. Across the street, a woman and child huddled beneath the awning of a closed supermarket, seeking shelter from the downpour. A luxury car slowed to a stop, its window lowering. The man inside spoke briefly, then the security guard approached, gesturing for the mother and child to leave. The car rolled away smoothly. Asher set down his cup and gripped his old umbrella tightly. 5 a.m., in a small apartment in an aging complex. Asher carefully placed the old umbrella in the corner, the final gift from his wife before she succumbed to illness 3 years ago. "Protect her as you protected me," were her last words. His right knee ached, an old military injury that flared up when rain approached. He prepared a simple breakfast for Rosalind, his 8-year-old daughter, while checking her homework and readying her school uniform. The refrigerator stood nearly empty. On the wall hung a calendar with tomorrow's date circled. The deadline for this semester's tuition payment. Before taking Rosalind to school, Asher applied ointment to the mild burn on his hand, evidence of his work as a kitchen assistant at a local restaurant. He glanced at his watch and sighed. Today he would need to work an extra shift at the gas station to gather enough money for Rosalind's school fees. The lines on his face deepened, but his movements remained precise and determined. He had promised his late wife that their daughter would have opportunities they never had, and he intended to keep that promise, no matter the cost to himself. At the school gates, luxury cars lined the curb. Rosalind clutched her father's hand tightly. "I don't want to go to school today, Dad." Asher knew why. The wealthy children in her class mocked her worn shoes and lack of a smartphone. He knelt down, his eyes level with hers, weathered hands gently gripping her shoulders. A father and daughter framed against a backdrop of privilege that highlighted their modest circumstances. "You're my bravest soldier," he whispered, slipping a folded paper umbrella into her pocket. "What matters isn't what others think, but knowing who you are." He straightened her collar, his fingers calloused but gentle. Rosalind nodded, summoning courage from her father's steady gaze. She took a deep breath and walked through the gates, her small shoulders squared with determination that mirrored her father's. Across town, in a 20th floor office with panoramic city views, Evelyn reviewed financial reports at her desk. The sole photograph displayed was of her and her daughter Seraphina, age 7. Her assistant informed her about a meeting with Korean investors who would decide the fate of a new commercial complex project. One that would transform the old apartment complex where Asher lived into an upscale shopping center. The numbers looked promising: projected revenues, tax benefits, employment opportunities for the district. What the spreadsheets didn't show were the lives that would be displaced. Evelyn's phone rang, Seraphina's school calling to report that her daughter had skipped class again. She sighed deeply. This was the 3rd time this month. Since the divorce, Seraphina had become isolated and difficult to reach. Psychologists had been of little help. Evelyn checked her expensive watch. No time for this right now. The Korean investors wouldn't wait, and this deal could cement her reputation as the firm's most valuable asset. "Have the driver pick her up and take her home," she instructed her assistant. "And tell Martha I'll be late." Again. The words fell from her lips with practiced efficiency, hiding the guilt that had become her constant companion. Her ex-husband's parting words echoed in her mind. "You're married to your work, Evelyn. Our daughter is just another appointment in your calendar." She had dismissed his accusation then, but the empty feeling in her chest when she returned to an already sleeping Seraphina each night had become harder to ignore. En route to a meeting at an exclusive restaurant, Evelyn's car passed through a local market. She paused, watching a father patiently waiting as his daughter selected an inexpensive hair clip. The love in their exchanged glances made something twist in Evelyn's chest. As her car continued, she pulled from her purse an expensive pearl bracelet, Seraphina's untouched birthday gift. Her daughter had barely looked at it before setting it aside. "I wanted you at my party, not another present," Seraphina had said. Evelyn returned the bracelet to her purse, her reflection in the car window showing a woman accomplished in business, but failing at what mattered most. Heavy rain pounded the pavement as Asher ran from the gas station to collect Rosalind from school. She stood soaked, having forgotten her raincoat. He carefully opened his old umbrella, sheltering her while remaining exposed to the downpour himself. His shirt clung to his shoulders, but his focus remained entirely on keeping his daughter dry. The rain didn't matter to him. What mattered was the smile returning to Rosalind's face as she looked up at her father, her protector against all elements, both natural and social. "Did you use the paper umbrella I gave you?" he asked, gently wiping raindrops from her cheeks. "I kept it safe," Rosalind replied, patting her pocket. "Tommy tried to take it, but I remembered what you said about being brave. Asher's heart swelled with pride at her resilience, even as he worried about the growing hole in her left shoe that the rain had surely found. Simultaneously, Evelyn's luxury vehicle pulled up to the school entrance. Seraphina sat silently in the back seat, refusing to look at her mother. Evelyn tried to maintain patience. "You need to tell me what's happening, Seraphina." Her tone balanced between authority and pleading. The voice of a woman accustomed to solving problems but finding herself helpless with her own child. "I want to go to Dad's," Seraphina replied coldly. Eyes fixed on the raindrops racing down the window, each one a tear she refused to shed. Evelyn stiffened. Her ex-husband had abandoned them to pursue his career abroad, and rarely made contact. "Your father is busy, you know that." The words sounded hollow even to her own ears. The truth was more complicated. He had offered to take Seraphina with him, but Evelyn had fought for custody, unwilling to lose the one person who gave her life meaning beyond boardrooms and balance sheets. Now she wondered if she had been selfish, keeping Seraphina for herself when she barely had time to be present. Suddenly, Seraphina flung open the door and darted into the rain. Evelyn gasped and pursued her. In the chaos, Seraphina collided with Rosalind, knocking the schoolbag from her hands. Books and homework scattered, soaking in puddles. Rosalind frantically gathered her papers, assignments she had spent all night completing, now running with ink. Tears mixed with raindrops on her cheeks as she tried to salvage the work her father had helped her with until midnight, despite his exhaustion. Asher rushed to his daughter, extending the umbrella to cover both children. When Evelyn arrived, she found her daughter sheltered beneath a shabby umbrella held by a dripping wet stranger. Her designer suit was already soaked, her carefully styled hair plastered to her face. For a moment, the corporate executive vanished, replaced by a mother afraid for her child. "Take your hands off my daughter," Evelyn shouted, pulling Seraphina away. Her voice carried the sharp edge of authority that commanded boardrooms but seemed out of place in this moment of childhood mishap. "I'm only trying to help," Asher explained calmly, still sheltering Rosalind as she attempted to salvage her soggy homework. His voice carried no judgment. Only the quiet assurance of a man accustomed to navigating difficult situations with dignity. Evelyn surveyed Asher's worn clothing, the burn mark on his hand, and the exhaustion etched across his face. Prejudice formed instantly. "You should worry about your own child before touching someone else's." The words came automatically, a defensive reflex born from years of maintaining control in all situations. Asher didn't respond to the barb. He simply turned to comfort Rosalind, who wept over her ruined work. "It's okay, sweetheart. We'll redo it. I'll help you." His voice remained steady, devoid of the anger he would have been justified in feeling. Instead, he focused entirely on his daughter's distress, gathering the wet papers with careful hands that had known both violence in war and tenderness in parenthood. "Seraphina, get in the car now," Evelyn commanded, her professional mask firmly back in place. She reached for her daughter's arm, but Seraphina remained rooted to the spot. But Seraphina remained still, watching Rosalind cry. She slowly bent down and picked up a waterlogged book. "I'm sorry," she said softly. The word seemed to surprise her as much as everyone else, a crack in the wall of silence she had built around herself. Evelyn froze in surprise. This was the first time she'd heard her daughter speak to a stranger since the divorce. Something about this rain-soaked scene had penetrated Seraphina's carefully constructed isolation. Asher smiled gently at Seraphina. "That's all right. Sometimes the worst things bring opportunities to make things better." The simplicity of his wisdom contrasted sharply with the complex negotiations and strategic planning that filled Evelyn's daily life. The simple statement captured Seraphina's attention. She turned to her mother. "I want to help fix her homework." Her eyes held a spark of life that Evelyn hadn't seen in months, a desire to connect that had been dormant for too long. Evelyn hesitated. Her entire career had been built on evaluating people and situations. Every external sign told her this man was not trustworthy, yet the patient calmness in his eyes contradicted her initial assessment. She found herself momentarily unable to reconcile the man's appearance with the gentle authority he exuded. "We need to leave," Evelyn said curtly, guiding Seraphina back to the car. The moment of connection broken, replaced by the practiced efficiency that had become Evelyn's default response to emotional complexity. As they drove away, Seraphina looked out the window at the man still patiently sitting in the rain, helping his daughter reorganize her wet pages. Father and daughter huddled together under the umbrella, a picture of mutual support despite their circumstances. "Why did you act like that?" Seraphina asked, her gaze still fixed on the scene they were leaving behind. Evelyn didn't answer. On the steering wheel, her fingers trembled slightly. She had no adequate explanation for her behavior, Only the uncomfortable realization that she had reacted from prejudice rather than reason, she who prided herself on rational decision-making in all circumstances. 3 days later, Asher worked the evening shift at a cafe near the hospital. He wiped tables while glancing at the clock. 1 hour remained in his shift, but Martha had texted that Rosalind was running a fever. Worry creased his brow, but his movements remained methodical. Customers came and went, unaware of the battle between responsibility and concern raging within him. Evelyn entered the cafe, looking exhausted. She had just left the emergency room. Seraphina had fallen during ballet class and needed several stitches. She recognized Asher immediately, though he didn't notice her. For a moment, she observed him working, the same quiet dignity evident in his movements that she had seen in the rain. Something about his demeanor reminded her of her father, who had worked 2 jobs to put her through college before cancer took him. The memory softened her expression. When Asher brought her order, Evelyn spoke up. "I think we met at the school." Her voice carried none of the sharpness from their previous encounter, only the weariness of a long day. Asher looked up, surprised. Recognition flickered in his eyes, but no resentment. "Yes. I hope she's all right." His concern seemed genuine, despite how she had treated him. "Seraphina got 4 stitches today," Evelyn replied, her voice weary. She didn't even cry. Pride mingled with sadness in her tone, proud of her daughter's strength but pained that Seraphina had learned to bear hurts alone. "She's brave like her mother," Asher offered with a small smile. The observation was offered simply, without flattery or design. Evelyn wanted to respond sarcastically but realized there wasn't a trace of irony in his voice. It was a genuine compliment. She found herself unprepared for kindness from a man she had dismissed and insulted. "I'm sorry about the other day," Evelyn said, surprising herself. Apologies were rare in her vocabulary. In the corporate world, they were often perceived as weakness. "It's fine. Everyone wants to protect their children," Asher responded simply. His forgiveness came without condition or expectation, as natural as his breathing. Asher's phone vibrated. He checked the message, concern immediately visible on his face. The mask of professional composure slipped, revealing the father beneath the server's uniform. "Is something wrong?" Evelyn asked. Her curiosity genuine rather than perfunctory. "My daughter has a high fever. The babysitter needs to leave, but I still have an hour left on my shift." The worry in his voice was palpable, a father torn between responsibility to provide and the need to care. Evelyn hesitated. "Do you need help?" The offer felt foreign on her tongue. She was accustomed to delegating problems, not personally addressing them. Asher shook his head. "Thank you, but I'll ask my manager if I can leave early." His pride wouldn't allow him to accept help from the woman who had judged him so harshly days before. While Asher spoke with his manager, Evelyn overheard. "I know this is the 3rd shift this week, and I need the tuition money, but my daughter." The quiet desperation in his voice struck a chord in Evelyn. She remembered her own father saying similar words to his boss when she had been sick as a child. The manager firmly shook his head. "There's a large group coming in an hour. Leaving now means losing your job, Asher." Business necessity trumping human need. A calculation Evelyn had made countless times herself from the other side of the equation. Evelyn watched Asher's shoulders slump, though he nodded in acceptance. When he returned, he caught Evelyn's gaze. Without a word, he continued working, tension evident in his expression. The resignation in his posture spoke volumes. A man accustomed to difficult choices, with no good options. Evelyn abruptly stood. "I need your help with something." The decision formed in her mind without conscious thought, an impulse that bypassed her usual careful deliberation. "Yes, ma'am?" Asher's response was automatic, the server addressing a customer. "I need someone to take Seraphina home. I have an emergency meeting." The lie came easily, shaped by years of corporate negotiation. Asher's eyes widened. "I can't leave." He gestured helplessly toward his manager. "I'll speak with your manager. This is for my company." Evelyn's voice recovered its authoritative edge, the tone that rarely encountered resistance. 5 minutes later, Asher was permitted to leave. In Evelyn's car, he shifted uncomfortably. "Thank you, but I don't understand." Confusion and gratitude warred in his expression as they pulled away from the cafe. "This is your address, correct?" Evelyn showed him her phone, displaying a map of the apartment complex where Asher lived. Asher looked startled. "How did you know?" Suspicion briefly replaced confusion, a soldier's instinct for potential threats. "I have my ways," Evelyn said with a slight smile. "Getting you home to care for your daughter is the right thing to do. Seraphina is asleep in the back seat. I'll drive you both home." She didn't mention that she had researched him after their first encounter, a habit developed from years of vetting potential business partners. When they arrived, Evelyn stopped outside the old apartment building, the very one targeted by her commercial development project. The reality of the complex was starkly different from the clinical property assessments on her desk. Children played in the courtyard despite the dilapidated surroundings. Neighbors called greetings to each other. It wasn't just real estate, it was a community. Asher carried a feverish Rosalind from Martha's apartment. Evelyn watched the thin girl, feeling a tightness in her throat. The child's face was flushed with fever, but she nestled trustingly against her father's chest. The bond between them was almost tangible, woven from shared struggle and unconditional love. "Thank you," Asher said quietly. "I don't know how to." Words failed him, a proud man unaccustomed to accepting help. "Give me your number," Evelyn interrupted. "I'll call you tomorrow." The request was framed as a command, easier for both of them than acknowledging the unusual kindness that had transpired. After Asher left, Seraphina awoke. "That was the girl from school, wasn't it, Mom?" Her voice was clearer than it had been in months, curiosity replacing the usual apathy. "Yes. What do you think of her?" Evelyn was surprised by her daughter's interest, a welcome change from her usual disengagement. "She looked sad," Seraphina said softly. "I want to help her." The simple statement revealed a compassion Evelyn had feared was lost in the aftermath of the divorce. Evelyn suddenly remembered Asher's old umbrella that he had used to shelter the children in the rain. It still lay on the back seat. Seraphina had picked it up when leaving the hospital. The weathered fabric told a story of years of use, of protection offered without hesitation. "I think we should return this umbrella," Evelyn said, reaching for it. The object seemed to carry more significance than its simple function would suggest. Seraphina shook her head. "Not today. She needs to rest." The decisiveness in her voice was new. A child finding her voice again. Evelyn stared at her daughter in amazement. This was their longest conversation in months. Something about the encounter with Asher and Rosalind had awakened something in Seraphina, a connection to the world outside her pain. 1 week later, Evelyn sat in a conference room with Korean investors. On the screen was the design for the commercial complex that would replace the old apartment building where Asher lived. The presentation showed gleaming storefronts, upscale restaurants, and manicured landscapes. A vision of prosperity that would boost property values and generate substantial tax revenue. What it didn't show were the faces of those who would be displaced. "We need a final decision," the partner said. "What's the plan for relocating the residents?" His tone was matter-of-fact, as if discussing moving furniture rather than uprooting lives. Evelyn hesitated. After meeting Asher, she had researched him. A wounded veteran injured in the line of duty, widowed by serious illness, working 3 jobs to support his daughter and pay off medical debts. Where would people like him go when their homes were demolished? The relocation compensation wouldn't cover housing in neighborhoods with schools as good as Rosalind's current one. The human cost, conveniently absent from the financial projections, suddenly seemed impossible to ignore. "I need more time," Evelyn said, surprising everyone in the room. The words were anathema in an industry where decisiveness was prized above all else. After the meeting, her assistant warned, "The partners aren't happy. They might pull out." The concern in her voice reflected the potential career implications for Evelyn. Deals like this defined reputations and determined year-end bonuses. "I'm aware," Evelyn replied, her voice steady despite the uncertainty churning within her. For the first time in years, the prospect of a failed deal didn't fill her with dread. Instead, she felt an unfamiliar lightness, as if setting down a heavy burden she had carried too long. Evelyn drove to Seraphina's school. She was surprised to find her daughter sitting on a bench with Rosalind, both intently drawing something. Their heads were bent close together, Seraphina's designer clothes a stark contrast to Rosalind's carefully mended uniform. Yet in their absorbed concentration, the differences seemed to disappear. "Mom." Seraphina waved excitedly, something that hadn't happened since the divorce. "Rosalind and I are drawing our dream house." The animation in her face transformed her, revealing the child who had been hidden beneath layers of hurt and anger. Evelyn looked at the drawing, a simple house with a flower garden and 2 families having dinner together. The crayon figures held hands across the table, their smiles wide beneath a blue sky filled with yellow sunshine. The image was childish, but powerful in its representation of connection and belonging. "Rosalind's dad taught us to fold paper," Seraphina proudly showed a small paper umbrella. "He says what matters isn't the thing that shelters you from rain, but the person willing to stand in the rain with you." She recited the words carefully, as if they contained a wisdom she was still trying to understand. Evelyn looked around and saw Asher standing not far away, smiling as he watched the children. When he caught Evelyn's gaze, he nodded politely and turned to leave. His demeanor remained respectful but guarded, a man accustomed to maintaining careful boundaries with those from different worlds. "Wait," Evelyn called. We still have your umbrella." The words were insufficient for what she really wanted to say, but they served as a bridge across the divide between them. "Keep it," Asher said. "Seraphina likes it." His generosity extended easily to a child who had all the material possessions she could want but treasured this simple item from a stranger. "I need to talk to you," Evelyn replied. "About your apartment complex." The professional facade slipped, revealing the uncertainty beneath. Asher's eyes darkened. "I understand. You're behind that project." Recognition, not accusation, colored his voice. He had known all along who she was, yet had accepted her help without comment. "How did you know?" Evelyn was taken aback, unaccustomed to being identified beyond her carefully cultivated public image. "I used to be a scout in the military," Asher smiled sadly. "And we received relocation notices last week." The reminder of his previous life, a decorated soldier before becoming a struggling single father, added another dimension to the man standing before her. "Aren't you angry?" Evelyn asked, genuinely curious. In her experience, those affected by corporate decisions rarely responded with such composure. "I'm just worried about Rosalind." Asher sighed. "School, friends, everything is here." His concern was entirely for his daughter, with no thought for his own hardship. The selflessness was foreign to the competitive world Evelyn inhabited. Evelyn felt an unfamiliar ache. "Could we find a solution?" The question represented a radical departure from the clear-cut decision that had seemed so straightforward in the boardroom. Evelyn's phone rang. Her assistant reported that the partners wanted an urgent meeting. They had found another developer ready to take over the project if Evelyn refused. The implicit threat was clear. Step back in line or be replaced. A year ago, the prospect would have terrified her. Now, it felt almost like freedom. "I'll be right there," Evelyn said, then turned back to Asher. "I have to go." The regret in her voice was genuine. "I know," Asher nodded. "Good luck with your decision." No pressure, no pleading, just an acknowledgement that choices have consequences. Something he understood all too well. In the conference room, Evelyn faced a difficult choice. Sign the contract, ensuring the company's success, or propose an alternative that might cost her everything she had worked for. The expectant faces around the table reflected the weight of the moment. Careers, investments, and reputations hung in the balance. The partner checked his watch. "We need an answer right now." His impatience reflected the pace of an industry where time literally equated to money, where hesitation was seen as weakness. Evelyn looked at the paper umbrella Seraphina had folded, sitting on the table beside the portfolio. She remembered Asher's patient gaze, how he prioritized his daughter above himself, and the rare joy Seraphina found in Rosalind's company. The contrast between material success and genuine happiness had never been clearer. "I have a new proposal," Evelyn said, opening a design on her computer. "A mixed-use complex, combining commercial space and affordable housing, with priority for current residents." The words came with surprising confidence, a vision forming as she spoke. The partner frowned. "The profits will decrease." His disapproval was evident, the bottom line being the only measure that mattered in his assessment. "But our brand will be stronger," Evelyn replied. "And this is the legacy I want to leave for my daughter." For the first time in years, she was thinking beyond quarterly reports and annual bonuses to something more enduring. As the partners left, visibly displeased, her assistant warned. "The shareholders won't be happy. You might lose your CEO position." The concern was legitimate. Corporate leadership had little tolerance for executives who prioritized social responsibility over profit maximization. "I know," Evelyn said, feeling a strange relief. "But I've already lost more important things." The admission was liberating, an acknowledgement of truths she had denied for too long. 2 years later, the new complex stood completed with affordable housing units and green spaces. The development had won several awards for innovative urban renewal that preserved community while promoting economic growth. Asher no longer worked 3 jobs, he now managed community projects, using his leadership skills from the military to build programs supporting children and struggling families. His experiences had made him uniquely qualified to bridge the gap between corporate interests and community needs. Evelyn was no longer CEO, but she was happier in her new role, running a foundation supporting single-parent families. The pay was less, but the satisfaction immeasurably greater. Most importantly, she was home for dinner every night, present for Seraphina, in ways that material provision could never replace. Seraphina and Rosalind now attended the same class, becoming inseparable friends. Their differences in background had become strengths they shared with each other. Rosalind teaching resilience and creativity, Seraphina offering confidence and opportunity. Together, they had created a bond that healed wounds in both families. During a community barbecue in the shared garden, Asher stood by the grill, smiling as he watched Rosalind and Seraphina playing with other children. The neighborhood had transformed, but not through displacement. Instead, it had grown stronger through inclusion, with new businesses providing jobs for residents and public spaces, fostering connection across economic divides. Evelyn approached, offering him a glass of lemonade. The awkwardness that had marked their early encounters had long since given way to easy companionship, then friendship, and eventually something deeper that neither had expected. "Can you believe it?" Evelyn said. "2 years ago, I almost turned this place into a luxury shopping center." The acknowledgement came without shame, a recognition of how perspective can shift when lives intersect. Asher laughed. "And I almost lost our home in Rosalind's school." His relaxed posture reflected how far he had come from the exhausted man working 3 jobs to keep his daughter in school. "Look how happy they are," Evelyn said softly, watching the children. The transformation in Seraphina was remarkable, the withdrawn, angry child replaced by a confident, compassionate girl who smiled easily and laughed often. "Not just them," Asher replied, placing his hand over hers. A wedding ring gleamed in the sunlight. The simple band represented not just their union, but the merging of 2 families who had found in each other exactly what they needed. When light rain began to fall, people hurriedly gathered their belongings. Asher opened an umbrella, no longer the old worn one, but a new one large enough for his small family. The old umbrella had been preserved, a reminder of where their journey together had begun. "Shall we head home?" Asher asked, slipping his arm around Evelyn's waist. The ease between them spoke of a partnership built on mutual respect and shared values. Evelyn smiled contentedly. "Let's go home." The word home had acquired a depth of meaning beyond physical shelter. It represented the safe harbor they had created together. Seraphina and Rosalind ran to them, squeezing beneath the umbrella, creating a warm, unified whole. They walked together through the rain toward their beautiful small home in the new complex, where 2 single-parent families had found each other and built a complete haven. Their laughter mingled with the sound of raindrops on the umbrella, a symphony of joy that contrasted with the storms they had weathered separately. "Sometimes," Asher said softly, "the rain brings us exactly where we need to be." The wisdom that had once seemed simple to Evelyn now revealed its profound truth. Evelyn squeezed her husband's hand. "And to exactly who we need to meet." The chance encounter that had seemed so insignificant at the time had altered the course of 4 lives in ways no one could have predicted. In their warm home, a family dinner awaited. Outside, the old umbrella was displayed in a glass case, a memento, a symbol of love, protection, and new beginnings. It served as a daily reminder that sometimes the most valuable things come from unexpected places, and that true wealth isn't measured in bank accounts, but in the richness of connection. Through the changing seasons over the years, their small family lived happily together. Rosalind and Seraphina grew up surrounded by the love of both a father and mother. Asher and Evelyn built both careers and family together, always reminding each other that the true value of life isn't found in possessions or status, but in the people beside us, those willing to stand with us in the rain, protecting and loving unconditionally. 5 years after they met, Asher and Evelyn celebrated their anniversary with a beach trip with their daughters. On the sand, Rosalind and Seraphina built a sandcastle together, no longer lost children but inseparable sisters. The fortress they created was elaborate, with moats and towers, and small paper flags fluttering in the breeze. A testament to the creativity fostered by security and love. "Do you remember when we met?" Evelyn asked, resting her head on Asher's shoulder, as they watched from beneath a beach umbrella. The memory no longer carried pain, only appreciation for how far they had come. "How could I forget?" Asher smiled. "You thought I was suspicious." There was no accusation in his tone, only gentle amusement at how appearances had nearly prevented them from discovering what lay beneath. "And you thought I was a haughty businesswoman," Evelyn laughed softly. "We were so wrong about each other." The admission came easily, a reminder of how initial judgments can miss the truth of a person. "Not entirely wrong," Asher said. "You're still a CEO at heart, running our family with determination and talent. And I'm still a soldier, protecting those I love." His observation acknowledged how their core strengths remained, redirected toward building a life together rather than surviving separately. Evelyn gazed toward the children, feeling overwhelming happiness. "We've built a real family, haven't we?" The question sought confirmation of what she felt but sometimes could hardly believe, that from broken pieces, they had created something whole and beautiful. Yes, Asher nodded. Not with bricks and mortar, but with love and patience. His hand found hers in the sand, fingers intertwining in a gesture that had become as natural as breathing. As the sunset painted the sky in shades of gold and pink, the family gathered around a small bonfire on the beach. Rosalind and Seraphina shared their future plans. One wanted to become a doctor, the other an architect, but both dreamed of helping people like they once were. Their ambitions reflected the security they now felt. The freedom to dream that comes from knowing you are anchored in love. Asher took from his pocket a small paper umbrella. A more intricate version of the simple folded umbrella he had once made for Rosalind years ago. He handed it to Evelyn, the gesture containing all the tenderness that words could not express. "You still fold paper umbrellas?" Evelyn asked, touched by the continuation of a tradition that had acquired such significance in their shared story. "One each day," Asher nodded. "To remind myself of what matters most." The discipline reflected his military background, transformed into a daily meditation on gratitude. "What's that?" Evelyn asked softly, though she already knew the answer. "Some truths bear repeating, not because they are forgotten, but because they grow deeper with each telling. That the storms in life aren't meant to drench us, but to teach us how to find shelter, and sometimes, the best shelter is beside those we love." The firelight caught the silver at his temples, evidence of years past but not regretted. Evelyn held the paper umbrella to her chest, tears glistening in the firelight. "I love you, Asher. Thank you for standing in the rain with me." The metaphor had become their private language, a shorthand for all they had weathered together. "I love you, Evelyn. And I'll keep standing with you, rain or shine, for the rest of our days." The promise was both simple and profound, a commitment renewed with each challenge faced together. The girls joined them, completing the circle around the fire. Rosalind leaned against her father, Seraphina against her mother, but their hands reached across to connect them all. Four people who had once been two broken families, now whole in ways none had imagined possible. The stars appeared one by one above them, witnesses to a happiness built not on perfect circumstances but on perfect commitment to each other. And when they returned home, the old umbrella in its glass case seemed to carry a new significance, not just a reminder of where they began, but a promise of sheltering love that would protect them through whatever storms still lay ahead. For in finding each other, they had discovered the truth that some gifts come disguised as hardships, and some rainy days lead to the brightest rainbows.